The electromagnetic field of the heart is very strong,
Mm,
even stronger than the brain. And that's where our learned emotions are being stored. And when
mhm,
this electromagnetic field is very strong, that's when sometimes you can feel the emotions of other people around us. Or when you enter
mm,
a room, you can feel
mm.
the mood of the room. So, how do we feel the mood of the room? Is it our brain processing that? Unlikely, right? Because the brain is a very rational, a very logical organ.
Mm.
Of course, there's the emotional part. There's the limbic part of the brain that processes emotions. But
Yep.
where does it originate from? It actually comes from the heart because there are
Right.
sensory neurites in the heart that functions very much like the neurons of the brains. So it sends messages to the limbic part of the brain, and that's where the brain interprets and start labeling the emotions like sad, happy, anxious, so on and so on and so forth.
Hi there, and welcome to Shift with Shubra. I'm your host, Shubra Venetti. I'm a certified sleep consultant, and I'm also the host of Shift with Shubra here on this platform. And on Shift with Shubra, we have conversations with different experts from different aspects of the health and wellness field on conversations that nourish our mind, body, and soul, and on topics about what nourishes our mind, body, and soul. And today's conversation is with Karen, who is a heart intelligence coach. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what exactly is a heart intelligence coach. Well, Karen's going to tell us all about it on today's episode. But a little bit about Karen is that she is a working mother of four. She recently gave birth to her fourth child, and she was balancing her needs of family, work, and passion. She spent more than 15 years in the public healthcare services and social services sectors in Singapore, directing, building, and improving care systems and processes for the community. She's also spent a lot of time volunteering for the less advantaged locally and overseas. And it's always been a big mission for her to help people and help other people's lives. But she was also having challenges when it came to priorities that were starting to shift for her when she became a mother, having to manage children after getting married and having children, managing her time with children, as well as wanting to still give back and help other people. It was causing a lot of friction for her, and she embarked on a journey where she learned a lot of tools in this sort of work of health and wellness, let's say, and she's come up with a coaching program which it is called Heart Intelligence. And her primary aim is that she wants you to start living a life that really matters to you. And if you are interested in living a life that's really mattering to you, she's a person that you can definitely get in touch with, because Karen is all about understanding what exactly, or helping you to find what exactly is the things that you want and desire to have the best ultimate life and version of yourself. What is the path that you need to chart out to get that? And then how does this work in a corporate or even like a group setting when you have to work with other people? So I won't go into too much detail right now because Karen's going to share all about that. But we're starting to delve into topics of law of attraction on this particular episode. So I'd stick around if you're really, really interested in that, and pick up some of the tools that she's going to share on how you can start incorporating some of this little bits of law of attraction into your life. And I'll give you a hint. It's all to do with your heart, and it's all to do with how you feel. And emotions play a big, big key here. So stick around, enjoy this conversation. I hope you do. And if you like it, please share it with someone who you think would benefit from this conversation. Subscribe to our channel, like the episode, like our channel, like our page, and spread the word. We really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome, Karen, to Shifted Shubra. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think just for our listeners and viewers, I've introduced you as a heart intelligence coach. And I think many of them are probably going, what exactly is a heart intelligence coach? So could you elaborate a little bit about what that is?
Okay. Um, So, as a heart intelligence coach, I basically enable and facilitate people to tap on the intelligence of their heart, the wisdom of their heart, as well as the intuition that comes from the heart, using that to help them or enable them to be a better version of themselves by having more clarity, more courage in pursuing what they want, as well as compassion for themselves. So these are the three areas which I encourage people to look into for themselves: courage, clarity, and compassion. Yeah.
Okay. And so by looking into their courage, their clarity, and their compassion, did I get the right three? Isn't
Yes.
that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So if they look into what is the benefit of looking into their heart clarity or their courage or their compassion?
Okay, so I
Compassion.
started off with heart intelligence because I see many people struggling day to day, not knowing where they are heading,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what exactly are their priorities in life, and hence they spend day after day just going through routines
Mm.
and getting very dreary of their life.
Mm.
So by tapping on the courageous side, the clear side, and the compassion side of themselves, um, it helps to enable them to be clearer with where they are heading to have the courage to take up what they have vision for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly is to love themselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is why is that the most important? Why is it important for the love of themselves?
I see that truly important because if you don't love yourself, your emphasis is always being put outwards,
Mm.
and you may not spend enough time to look inwardly towards ourselves.
Mm.
And without looking inwardly, that's when we tend to not be able to recognize some of our tendencies,
Mm.
some of why we behave in a certain way, why
Yeah.
we react in a certain way. And that brings about a lot of repercussions like anxiety, bad temper. Of course, this is on the emotional side. Whereas on a deeper level, that's when you start to feel lost,
Mm.
start to feel that you're unsure of where you're heading, what you're doing day by day, what is important in life. Yeah.
Mm. And so why okay, so maybe let's start with because I've got so many other questions, but then how did you get into this? It's a very unique field. And I feel like it's an up and coming field in especially the health and wellness sector, is that people are starting to, especially if you're in that sort of sector, you kind of maybe the little bit more esoteric sector of
Yeah.
health and wellness, that you kind of understand that the heart plays a huge role. But
Yes.
since obviously you're the expert on it, I'm not going to necessarily go into that just yet. I would like to ask you about it, but maybe can you just tell us how you came to this?
Um, Actually, since young, I've really been interested in the heart, maybe in a physical sense, when I
Mm-hmm.
studied the heart as a physical organ. But when I started journeying on my NLP journey, my NLP path, neuro linguistic programming, that was where I learned about the energetic power of the heart. Yeah,
Right.
so we understand ourselves as besides our body, we have our mind, which
Mm.
is our thoughts, our thought processes that is generated in our brain. We hardly take notice that our emotions play a very huge part in influencing and affecting people around us. But how
Mm.
does this emotional energy affect people, and where does it come from? Is
Mm.
it from the brain? Is it from the heart? So through the NLP journey, that's where I learned that the electromagnetic field of the heart is very strong,
Mm.
even stronger than the brain. And that's where our learned emotions are being stored. And when
Mm-hmm.
this electromagnetic field is very strong, that's when sometimes you can feel the emotions of other people around us. Or when you
Mm.
enter a room, you can feel
Mm.
the mood of the room. So, how do we feel the mood of the room? Is it our brain processing that? Unlikely, right? Because the brain is a very rational, a very logical organ.
Mm.
Of course, there's the emotional part. There's the limbic part of the brain that processes emotions. But
Yep.
where does it originate from? It actually comes from the heart because there are
Right.
sensory neurites in the heart that functions very much like the neurons of the brains. So it sends messages to the limbic part of the brain, and that's where the brain interprets and start labeling the emotions like sad, happy, anxious, so on and so on and so forth. Yeah,
Mm.
but the feeling part comes from the heart.
Right.
Yeah, that's where it originates. So that's a very important element, a very important energy that we have in us, because by knowing how to tap into this energy, that's where we start to learn where the power within us lies in.
Mm.
Because a lot of our reactions in life, they are triggered by emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, why do we feel motivated? Why? Because we suddenly feel this energy, this rush of energy in us. We feel excited, so that's why we feel motivated. So a lot of our reactions in life comes from emotions
Mm.
before the logic part kicks in. I think
True.
that's where most people don't notice that your emotions gets triggered first. Actually,
Yes.
if you are emotionless with something, your brain don't even bother to analyze it.
Mm.
Only when the emotions are triggered, then that's where the brain starts processing it, and that's where the logic and the rationale starts kicking in. Yeah,
Right. And that's a very important point. I think most people don't necessarily think about a lot is that emotion precedes logic or
yeah,
precedes sort of like analysis of your brain. So the moment that person falls in love with someone, they're attracted by first emotion, like the
yeah,
feeling first enters before, like visually you're taking in information, but a feeling is generated, and therefore then the attraction is even more solid. But if it was just an attractive person, but you have no emotional connect to the person, it's like a piece of art, right? It
yeah,
just becomes like, oh, that's really nice,
yeah. That's right. That's right.
eye candy passing by, but it has nothing further than like an energetic pull or vibe to it, then you're not sucked into it. I mean, I think that's kind of why things like K-pop fandom work so well, because
Yeah,
it's so much energy
yeah,
exchange going into it, right? Not just K-pop fandom, but just generally, the heart really, you're right, like totally is the first organ to make those connections. And so, in terms of the intelligence coaching that you do, taking from the fact that the heart being, I love how you explain it, because I think that's so important to know that there's just as much um, neurological input in the heart, because I won't know the right words to say it because you said the right words, but there's enough neurological input in the heart that it receives information and then sends the information to the brain to
yeah,
process the emotion. So the heart is the first thing to take in, which is why when people say, oh, I walk into a room and I sensed a vibe, the vibe is actually felt on the heart level first, because you can walk in and you're just seeing people talking to each other, but not necessarily taking in any, like, there's no words coming in that you can really judge anything on. It's just like you just walk in, you're like,
yeah.
interesting.
Exactly.
Like, do I vibe with this vibe or do I not? And that's really your heart picking up the energies and saying, do I synchronize with this energy or do I
Yes.
not?
Yeah.
And so I have so many questions. I think one of my questions is like, okay, I'll pin it for later, but it's along the lines of like, when do you know it's supposed to be a learning, and then when do you know it's supposed to be get the hell out of there kind of question. Because in part of your processes that you offer, you have something called heart clarity, and then heart visioning and heart leadership. Can you break down what those services are first?
Okay.
Hmm.
Heart clarity is very much about self mastery.
Okay.
emotional self-mastery, because that's the fundamental. If we don't understand ourselves, how do we aim to understand others?
Yeah.
Yeah, so by mastering ourselves well, and being aware of how we react to our emotions, that's where we achieve clarity, uh, not only of ourselves, also of others around us. With clarity, that's where courage comes up as well. Because when we are very clear about what we want, it the naturally the courage comes out that you want to work on something, on yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like what I said, what I mentioned earlier, the compassion towards ourselves as well. With that clarity, we know why we react in a certain way, how we should react, and that's where compassion arises.
Mm.
Yeah, not only towards ourselves, towards others as well. Yeah, so this heart clarity is very much about mastering ourselves, our emotions, understanding how we react, understanding ourselves on a deeper level. And that's where healing and transformation starts. Yeah. Without understanding ourselves well, we are just basically going in circles when it comes to healing. We're
Mm.
always coming back to square one, always coming back to square one. But when we are absolutely clear about why we have certain tendencies and why we react in a certain way, where it originates from, how it came about, does it originate from somewhere in during our childhood, or during some past experiences that left a scar in us?
Mm.
When we are clear about that, that's when we start to heal, and that's when we start to transform. Yeah, without clarity, it's hard to start to heal ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah. So heart clarity is knowing all this. Yeah, and I be in control. Maybe not really the word in control, but being much more aware, sharper in our senses, in our senses, our emotions. Yeah, how we process them.
Mm.
That's heart clarity.
Mm.
Yeah. And after, while healing and transforming ourselves, um, I mean, part of the challenges that we have in life sometimes is not knowing where we are heading to, what is the value that we have upon others, what are we trying to achieve in our life. So that's where heart visioning comes in.
Mm.
Yeah, so with clarity, we know what is important to us. We know
Right.
what we like and what we don't like, what triggers us, what doesn't trigger us. And that's where we may want to start to plan out our life path, things that used to bother us. We want to cast them aside, uh, chart out a path, a path that we look forward to in life, live
Mm.
life more significantly with more clarity. So that's where heart visioning comes in. Yeah, it's like a plan and a vision that we want to achieve in life. It can be
Mm.
anything. It can be pertaining to family, pertaining to career, or even just for ourselves. Yeah.
Mm.
So we envision where we want to head towards,
Mm.
and that's where with clarity, uh, my role is to guide and to facilitate the direction towards the vision
Okay.
that you have.
Mm.
Okay. And then lastly would be heart leadership. Heart leadership is where it's no longer just about ourselves, it's about others as well. So how
Mm.
do we want to lead others to
Mm-hmm.
also have that same clarity, to also have that vision? um, Apart from that, if you are having a role in the corporate world, how do you lead with a
Yeah. Very
heart-led
hard.
leadership? How do you lead with a heart? um, so my services basically span around these three aspects.
So then let's talk about like where the limitations may come up. Not limitations, that's the wrong word. But like then in your opinion, when you're working with clients, right, and people come up, now we're gonna get into like sort of not existential, but like emotional talk a little bit, right? If clients come up with this sort of notion that oh, I'm doing this and I have no choice. And I think there's a lesson here. So I must overcome this lesson. So therefore, I must keep doing this thing until something else shows up in my life to then tell me that this is no longer valid. Because from what I'm hearing with the heart, clarity, visioning, and leadership is that we're starting to talk onto notions of law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
Like once you start to get very clear about who you are and what your true needs are, what your true wants are, desires, what are things that are no longer serving you, what are things that are just reactions because of past impressions from childhood or past memories that are affecting you to really lead a very authentic life where it's really about you and not being a reactor to your environment, right? That you're becoming a proactive person in your life and not just reacting. Am I getting this right? Am I
Yeah.
am I
I
summarizing? Okay.
understand. I understand
Yeah.
where you're coming from.
And so yeah, if people are feeling like, oh well, I'm taking decisions, I'm going to work, I'm doing the job, I've got all of these responsibilities, and apparently I should just do this until a better job walks my way. Is that like just waiting? Is that just waiting for the cards to fall? Or is that like how do we know that we're, like you're visioning and trying to attract it, or is it a lesson that you're still supposed to learn until things start to fall? I don't know if that's clear enough of the question.
I think I kind of understand where what you are referring to. There is no judgment of why there are certain reactions, there are certain emotions. It's very much a questioning process
Mm,
for the client or for the coachee. Is the emotion worthwhile? What do you get to gain or what do you get to lose if you let go of the emotion? So it's the process of questioning itself is to sharpen the awareness of the client and the coachee. And when the awareness is sharp, that is the start of the learning journey of themselves. Because without awareness, everything seems fine. Everything should remain status quo. Um, I don't see an issue with reacting that way. But when the awareness is there, you start to understand the impact of that emotion, the impact of that reaction on ourselves and on others. Yeah. Are we putting pain on ourselves by having that emotion, by having that reaction? Is that pain worthwhile to hold on? And if we let go of the pain, what happens?
mm,
So, through this questioning, the interesting part is the clients may possibly start to investigate why that emotion, why that reaction came about. Is it just simply a reaction to a circumstance, a situation, or is it deeply rooted in something that is way back during the younger days, during childhood? And when this root is being traced back, that's when the client, the coachee starts to be aware, starts to
mm,
understand why day in and day out he or she is often triggered by this particular person or by this particular behavior. And by understanding that, that's when the client can decide whether to put down or not. The decision still lies on the client.
mm.
Yeah, this is his or her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, by deciding whether to let it go or to continue with it, um, he or she will realize whether is it worthwhile, whatever the decision is being made to let go or not.
Mm,
Yeah, whether it's worthy or not, the decision lies with the client. Yeah, but more importantly, the awareness is being sharpened day in and day out to know why it happens.
mm,
Yeah, to trace it back to some source. So it's by
mm,
knowing where the source is, where the origination is, um, there is some kind of a liberation.
mm.
Yeah, some people goes to read their past lives.
Yeah.
And by knowing what happened in the past, there's somewhat a liberation of why certain things happen in their life, in this life. Yeah, so similarly, if we are able to trace it back to where this behavior originated, this emotion originated, there's some sort of a liberation as well.
Mm.
With that liberation also comes clarity.
Mm.
Yeah, because you start to see things more clearly, why it happened, and when clarity comes up, that's when the decision of whether to let go of or not is also clearer.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a process. It's really a process. Some people understands it very quickly,
Yeah.
can let go of it very quickly, but some people can take years, months
Mm.
or years, in order to really let it go.
Mm.
Yeah. Because letting go, there are also implications as well.
Right.
Yeah. And every individual is different, is unique.
Mm.
Their journey is very unique. Yeah. So to know whether they have uh, achieved certain, say, targets or objectives that they have set for themselves, is very much the client. The client is the one telling me,
Mm.
the coach, whether
Mm.
they have felt liberated or no longer restrained by certain emotions, certain reactions. Yeah.
Right.
So, yes. So the client lets me know.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the client is always in the control of it. Yeah, for sure. And everyone, I guess, has that own journey of like when they choose to really be like, okay, this no longer serves me, or like, oh, I get it now. Like, actually, this was the source of that always coming, and therefore it's no longer worth the investment of giving it time and energy anymore. So in terms of just some of the tools that you're using, because as I looked at the services, for example, there's some things like Enneagram profiling
Mm-hmm.
and quantum energy healing and heart coherence. Like, could you expand a little bit about what are these sort of methodologies?
Sure. So because I mentioned earlier that every individual is unique. So for different individuals, I actually curate differently. So some people may want to understand themselves better. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I can do a enneagram profiling for them to understand where their tendencies of their personality are,
Okay.
uh, look more clearly at why they tend to behave in a certain way, and why even the people around them, how do they react? How
Mm-hmm.
do they tend to react to the people around them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so enneagram profiling is very much like a personality profiling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, there are a lot of tools out there. There is DISC, there's MBTI, so on and so forth. I find that enneagram allows me to understand myself much better. Yeah, so I will use the same tool for my clients as well. There are basically 9 types that we can categorize uh, the profilee into. So by understanding where their tendencies are, that's when we start the work of their healing and their transformation. Yeah, so that's possibly the first step. For some people, they may be very consumed by emotions, very
Mm.
strong emotions, which they cannot release themselves from. So that's where quantum healing can possibly do the kickstart instead of enneagram profiling. Okay. If a person is so consumed by emotions, sometimes understanding their own character or their personality does nothing at all because
Right.
they are so absorbed into that very strong emotions. They are not balanced within themselves to be able to look further and to look deeper. So
Mm.
quantum healing, I can do things like Reiki,
Mm.
helps to balance the energy centers,
Mm-hmm.
allow them to feel more balanced first before we start with anything.
Mm.
Yeah. There are other things that I can work on as well, like inner child healing and shadow work. So, inner child healing basically brings the person back to the childhood to look at what really bothers the person and the events that happened during childhood possibly molded this person into a certain way. So inner
Mm.
child healing is bringing the person back to look at what wounds were being built on when they were young,
Mm.
right? Shadow work is basically looking at the darker side of ourselves. So we have two sides. We have the dark side, we have the light side. So
Mm.
all this makes up us,
Yeah.
what we are today. Yeah. So
Mm.
being able to open up the dark side of ourselves and look at them, be upfront about them, is part of a healing process as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So basically, these four areas is where I work on.
Mm.
Ultimately, is to help them achieve not only clarity and also to work on their heart coherence as well,
Mm.
which is really the core of my work.
Yes. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Tell me a
Right.
little bit more about how coherence in that
Okay.
sense then.
So heart coherence is where we physically, heart coherence is where our heart rhythm is consistent. It's different
Okay.
from heart rate. We
Okay.
do measure heart rate, right, using our smartwatches when we run or when we are at rest, we measure our heart rate. Our heart rate is very different from heart rhythm.
Okay.
Heart rhythm is the variability of our heartbeat.
Okay.
So there is a measurement for it. It's called HRV, heart rate variability. That's
Mm-hmm.
where um, the variability between the beats is being measured. So if
Mm.
the variability is consistent, that's where we call it heart. We actually name it heart coherence. Okay, when the
Right.
variability is consistent.
Okay.
If the variability is very varied, that's where we say our heart is incoherent.
Mm.
Yeah. So when our heart is coherent, that's where we will feel more at peace.
Mm-hmm.
We'll feel more calm.
Mm-hmm.
We feel more grounded,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, the emotions, we won't get consumed by our emotions, or our reactions wouldn't be so strong, wouldn't be so abrupt. Yeah.
Right.
We'll feel more balanced
Mm.
as a whole.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what heart coherence mean. And when our
Mm.
heart is coherent, that's where our electromagnetic field is the strongest.
Right.
Yeah. when
Mm-hmm.
when we are incoherent, our electromagnetic field it varies as well. The strength of it varies. It can
Mm.
be very weak, it can be very strong. It's just inconsistent, right? And when it's very weak, we start to draw the fuel from other places, from
Mm.
others, or
Right.
even consuming our own energy. So that's why
Right.
after a very strong emotion, we tend to feel very drained, very
Mm.
tired. After a quarrel, we feel very tired
Mm.
because we are absorbing, we are we are getting the energy that the heart produces, the electromagnetic field. We're actually absorbing it, and in turn it becomes weaker. The field around
Mm.
us becomes weaker.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why we feel so tired after a quarrel or after an
Mm.
argument.
Mm.
You just have no mood to do anything.
Yeah.
But when your field is very strong, that's where we get positive emotions like gratitude, like love, like compassion for others,
Mm.
motivation, all the positive energy starts coming in. So we talk
Mm.
about law of attraction, right? Law of
Yes.
attraction is very much about energy around us. If our
Mm.
field is strong, if our field is positive, positive things starts to be attracted to us as well. We generate
Mm.
our own positivity,
Mm.
right? So that's how the law of attraction works.
Yeah.
Positivity attracts positivity. So abundance comes when you feel gratitude. You see good things happening around us. See people who can help us just come forward to help us.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that the feel that we generate around us is so important.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people perhaps, oh god, oh sorry, this is still on. Mm. A lot of people I think perhaps wonder if like, oh, my life is going so blah, and I have all these problems, blah, and all these blah, blah, blah. I'm waiting for the one good thing to show up to then answer and tell me, oh, actually, this is the positive breakthrough, or this is like the way it goes, or like, like this is the answer to all my problems, or this is going to take me away from my problems or solve my problems or whatever, or like if this one good thing happens, then I believe in the law of attraction. But it's very much counter like it's counterintuitive, because it's like I will do nothing
Mm.
about my own emotions, about my own mentality. I am going to be the subject of my environment. I'm going to be like blame or play the victim card and say that, oh, I don't do anything. I'm at the mercy of all my circumstances. And only if something drops into my lap, then it is the reason why I will now think about, oh, law of attraction. But I'm guessing in those circumstances, it's much harder for people to then feel that law of attraction is
Yeah,
working for them. So
yeah,
for people like that, who feel like everything is like, oh, I'm at the mercy of my environment, I have no choice, I have all these responsibilities, I have to do all of this stuff, even though it's not what I want to do, and I'm not getting paid the right way, or whatever it is. What small steps do you think they can already start to do? Or maybe we can also explain, I guess, that it's a step-by-step process. We have to open up small things first
yeah,
before the big things can arrive.
yeah.
Not just like, oh, you win the you win the lottery one day, or 4D one day. But what are the small steps that people can do to start to open those things? And how should people really expect this path to really open up? If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Mm,
It's pretty common uh, for people to feel victimized and to expect that something good lands on their lap and they'll start believing in it.
mm,
It's very
mm.
common. Sometimes I do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
What I would do is to encourage the client to take baby steps. Firstly, by sharing with them that we create our own reality.
Mm,
Really, we create our own reality. How we see things, how things happen to us, we create them.
mm,
So, in that sense, we are pretty much in control. Yeah. I mean, people like control, right? So,
mm,
first and foremost is tell them that we are in control. In order to kickstart good things to happen, I will encourage them to visualize.
okay.
If you are gunning for a promotion, visualize that you have already gotten that promotion.
Mm,
How will you feel about it? What are the emotions that will come up? How will you react to it? Just visualize every
mm,
day,
mm,
maybe first thing in the morning or just before going to sleep. Visualize getting that promotion. Feel the emotions that come in and feel that they are part of you. You already have them. You have already gotten that promotion. The promotion is yours. It
mm,
won't run away. It's yours. So visualize that every day. And that's
mm,
where the positive energy starts to build up. Be it gratitude, be it what else? Gratitude, motivation.
mm-hmm,
So this positive energy, when uh, we are able to carry that energy day in and day out, the energy of gratitude, the energy of motivation day in and day out, yeah, things starts to happen,
mm,
happen around us. People
mm,
starts to notice the changes that we have.
mm,
And maybe in terms of the work, the quality of the work changes as well. So it may
mm,
not happen overnight. I think
mm,
most importantly is to recognize the importance of patience. Yeah, to
okay.
have patience, to know
Mm-hmm,
that it will happen, it will ultimately happen,
mm-hmm,
but be patient about it. It may take
mm,
a couple of months, it may take half a year, it may take a year, but if you do that day in and day out, the energy energy, within the positive energy is already created within you, it grows and it will attract the correct things to happen upon you that
Mm.
will ultimately bring about the promotion.
Mm.
Yeah. So most importantly is to know that firstly, we are in control of our reality. Secondly, is to be patient. I
Mm.
think these two aspects are are the are the most challenging for most of us, to be
Yeah.
patient and to know that we are in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And visualizing as much as
And
possible. So like,
visualizing. Yeah.
for example, let's say two cases, okay, where you can't visualize. One person, person A, is trying to wants to attract their perfect soulmate, whatever partner that they want to. Let's say that they want to like settle down now, they want to have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship, get married, all of that. But they've gone through so many bad relationships. And so they won't be able to visualize the person
Mm-hmm.
because they may have certain qualities that they like, oh, I know he needs to be little bit taller than me, or I
Mm-hmm.
prefer men who have black hair, or if they have gold hair, whatever. So they can give small details, but they can't give
Mm-hmm.
everything, right? So
Okay.
when they can't, so that's one instance where you can't really visualize the full actuality of it, of the product, not the product, but like the outcome that you want, in that sense. The other time where you may not be able to visualize completely, for example, is like you want your dream job, the qualities of the dream job, but you have no idea what that is as a job. So let's say you're someone who likes to plan, you like to work with people, you like to problem solve, and you want a certain salary, and it needs, it would be great if it was in this kind of company working with these kind of things. But as a role, or as a, like, it's very hard, like you can't find an exact role if you looked up on LinkedIn, or let's say jobs.com, or whatever it is. You can't find a role exactly like this, or a company exactly like this, but you have an idea of what you'd like to do. So now in
Mm.
these two instances where you don't have the exact endpoint result, but you have all these like little bits of the cake, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, how would you how would you visualize then?
Mm. Okay, so maybe that's where my role comes in as well,
Mm-hmm.
to help you visualize a clearer picture.
Okay.
So then the process of understanding what exactly you want,
Mm-hmm.
what is the outcome that you want, and what is the effect that you want out of it, uh, to to understand all this, to
Mm-hmm.
investigate and to understand all this. Well, there are, so for example, the career one, um, maybe to a person, I just want to be promoted to a director level. Yeah. But how does a director look like? It's sometimes very hard. How do I look like as a director? It's sometimes very hard. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to get out of being a director? Do you
Okay.
want to be able to impact others,
Mm-hmm.
to lead others? And how does leading and how does impacting others feel like?
Right.
How does it feel like to you?
Mm.
Do you feel a rush of energy?
Mm.
Do you feel a sense of very strong responsibility and accountability?
Mm.
How does that feel? Do you feel confident?
Right.
Yeah. So the emotions that are generated, the effect of it, of being promoted to a director, that's where we will investigate and
Right.
understand. And through knowing the emotions that will come about, that's where I lead them into so-called visualizing. Maybe
I
it's not
see.
really visualizing per se, but it's to be able to feel the emotions that come up, to feel that it's already part of you, to feel that it
Mm.
has already happened. Yeah, so
Mm.
it may not be a visual thing, but it may be a emotional visualization. Maybe
Right.
the word visualization feels like it has to be something very physical.
Yes.
Yeah, but it could also be about feeling a feeling.
Mm.
Yeah, feeling the outcome after you have achieved it. How do you feel it? How do
Mm.
you feel? So feel that every day. Feel that
Right.
every single day. Yeah.
Right.
And the things will start naturally happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the feeling part when a person can't exactly visualize. Yeah.
Mm.
But when it comes to soulmate, of course, there are certain physical attributes that the person may have or may look for. So that is when visualization can be very physical. Means
Mm.
knowing that this person looks like that, has this kind of build, is able to talk to me in a certain way, treat me in a certain way. So that has both the physical and the emotional element. You can
Mm.
visualize the person that you really want to meet. After meeting him or her, how would you feel?
Mm.
And when you start dating, how will you feel?
Mm.
So that is also that has both elements. Yeah. So do that every single day. That's where the energy is being built up to attract the kind of person or the kind of thing that you want to happen to in your life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are going to start saying, like, oh, that's just like dreaming or daydreaming or wishful thinking. I think there's a fundament. This sounds like there's a fundamental difference, though. You can dream and think like, oh, that's so great, and then just leave it there, and then never really come back to
Yes.
it. Um,
Yeah.
or you could take one. What I'm hearing is that there needs to be consistency and discipline with this as well. If you want something to happen, is to take just something really small. Let's take the partner, the soulmate thing. Let's say is that you visualize generally the characteristics that you're interested in, right? Generally, if there is some specific things, like some people are very into men with short hair, I don't know,
Mm.
right? For example, but like you vaguely have some version of a physical attribute if that's important to you. If not, it's to just visually, or just have this visualization where your feelings are like, you imagine sitting with this person and having a conversation and enjoying it, or you're
Yeah.
going out with this person for dates, for movies, doing things, and feeling that emotion, and then seeing that person do the things that they need to do that makes you happy, or you are doing things for them that makes you happy, whatever it is. So you just feel those feelings and visualize those scenarios in a very slightly blurred version. Like you could be very clear in that visualization, but the person could be slightly blurred, like the face
Mm.
is blurred or something, let's
Mm.
say. But the body is very clear. And then just imagine the scenarios, and then imagine the scenarios over and over again, with especially the feeling, and really like paying attention to how you feel, and not getting whisked up in like, oh, dreamy land, but really like feeling the feeling. The feeling should really be almost as strong as possible in your body, more than the thought itself. The
Yeah.
feeling should be quite strong.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes. You got it exactly.
Mm. Okay. And then in terms of the job, so for example, for people out there, because obviously COVID times now, right? A lot of people are sitting there going, either they've lost their job, or they have had to take other jobs, or they are starting to wonder now with everything changing, and people passing, things like that, life in jeopardy, like, is this the job that I really want to do for the rest of my life, right?
Yes.
And some people are like, yes, this is my dream job, I've always wanted to do this, whatever it is. But there are quite a few people sitting in their jobs going, I don't actually want to do this for the rest of my life. And so for them, if they don't know what the exact job is to just visualize the thing. So it's
Yes.
like the qualities of the job. So if you're someone who really likes to work with people, just imagine yourself and really imbibing that feeling, really feeling that feeling of like, oh, I can see myself walking and talking with people, got papers in my hands, having
Mm.
conversations, and you know it's working on the ground with people. So I see myself working outdoors a lot. Let's say if it's a person who wants to be outdoors more than being in an office, sure. But if it's a person in the office who is very happy to do an office-based job, then they're imagining themselves like, I see myself sitting at a computer, working, taking phone calls, going into meeting rooms, having conversations, smiling as I do it and feeling really great about seeing myself in this office environment. And then hearing, but as I pick up the phone, I'm saying, my name is Shubha Benetti, and I am the director of sales and marketing for blah 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 blah. As I'm saying it on the phone, or something like that. So you have as much detail as you can,
Yes.
or as much as you can. If you don't know, let's say, the company, or you don't know the job role, is just being like, yes, my job is all to do with working with people to get things done, and whatever it is. So you take whatever details you can, even if you don't know, oh, it's exactly the role of product manager in XYZ company. If you don't know if that's existing yet, you can still take qualities. Am I getting this right? So
Yes,
you can take
spot
this, yeah?
on. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You
Because
can do
this is,
it too.
I can do it. Yeah, I'm totally gonna do it. Because I think it's just important also for listeners, right? And for
Yes.
viewers, when they look at this, they just go, well, how do I visualize? Because it's easy to say, put a visualization board up, right? Where I put stickers and people, not stickers, paper, and stick it up there and whatever.
Mm.
Or I sit there and I dream as much as I
Yeah.
possibly can. But then it feels like, where what do I dream? Do I just dream and dream and dream, or do I like have specific steps? And I think the steps are, take small qualities as much as you can,
Yeah.
and then put it together as, I would say, storyboard it to people listening, as really like visualize it like a narrative, like a
Yeah.
story, like a
Yes.
play in your head,
Mm.
right? Like every day, if you want an office job in a particular company, you imagine yourself walking through those doors, wearing your whatever work wear that you have to wear for that company, walking through those doors, swiping your card, whatever it is, entering, going to your desk, saying on the phone, like, yeah, now I work at this great company and I do these works and I work with these people, and see yourself doing that entire day and coming back home and feeling amazing. And just repeat that movie in your head every day, the same steps as much as possible. The more you can start filling out those details, more colors, more people, but follow the same narrative over and over and over, like a replay button,
Yeah.
and just adding more color to it. And then it'll start to feel real enough. And if you do this with long enough patience, if you do this with patience and long enough time, hopefully we're talking, I don't know, like at least by a year's time, you should be
Mm.
somewhere.
Yeah. I think
Maybe.
most importantly would be the emotional part as well. So
Yeah.
every step that you visualize, what are the emotions that are being generated? We have to
Mm,
understand that emotion,
mm,
and to feel that emotion every time you bring yourself through the steps of visualization.
yeah.
It's always the emotions that generate the energy,
Yeah.
that allows things to happen.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe an analogy would be when we watch a movie,
Mm,
you're always looking at images, right? Movie images.
that's
But
right.
what makes us remember the movie?
How you feel.
How you feel? Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes us sad, make us really happy. All these emotions are are the cause of why we remember certain images of the movie. We may not remember the entire movie, but we remember snippets of it because that
Mm,
has left a very deep emotional imprint in us. So
mm,
same thing for our own visualization. There's no point just going through the visuals, the images, the emotions that are tied to each step,
mm,
each image is
mm.
actually even more important.
But yes, yeah, absolutely. So as much as you can visualize the movie, the biggest role everything is playing actually is your heart. Your heart needs to feel these emotions. So really feeling, and if you don't know how actual emotions for you feel, people, then you got to sit there and think, or practice, what does joy truly feel like? What does passion or happiness truly feel like? And if you don't know what that truly feels like, think
Yeah.
back to either a moment in your life that made you feel joy, or made you feel excitement, made you feel happy. Start with something like that. If you're someone who really works with movies and binge watching on Netflix like me, like, think of a scene that has really brought up that sort of emotion in you, and then try to remember that emotion in your body, and then try to see if you can find something that works in your life, and
Yes,
see if you can bring that
exactly.
same emotional memory into the movie that's playing in your head, and then magic will happen.
Happen.
It will happen. And if you cannot do this, you must speak to Karen. that's that's all of this is like all combined into that also at the end of the day. If you are really
Yes.
struggling, talk to people like Karen who can help you on this journey and
Yeah.
get the things and desire of your life, because everyone's got their own unique purpose and desire and
Mm,
place in life. And
mm,
so you're meant to go and fulfill that purpose. So please,
mm.
if you can't do it on your own, contact people like Karen and get your journey started.
Yes,
Okay.
I can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen. I
Thank
think
you,
finally,
Shubra.
just one last question is, what is the shift that you want to create in the world with your work?
Okay. The shift, I really hope to see everyone becoming a better version of themselves. We may not be able to change the world entirely, but just by changing ourselves, just by shifting ourselves a little bit, we can actually make the world a much better place to be in. Yeah. So if everyone just shift a little bit, the world will be a much better place to live in. Yes.
Absolutely. I completely agree, which is why this podcast was called Shift as well.
Yes.
So, yes, it's absolutely that. You change one part and then the face changes completely, right? So, if you
Yeah.
change your entire energy just by a little
Just
bit,
about a little bit.
like lots can happen. A lot of
Yeah.
great things can happen.
Yes.
So, it's take little shifts, everyone. And yeah, shifting in your energies is going to be really important, but shifting in your emotions, okay? And if you
Yeah.
need help, get in touch with people like Karen. All
Yes.
right. Yes, amazing. All right, thank you so much, Karen,
Thank
for coming
you,
on today.
Shubha.
And thank
Thank
you
you.
everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Okay, bye.